Madam Clerk, if you could please call the roll.
Ms. Bowe?
Here.
Mr. Hamilton?
Here.
Mr. Tarley?
Here.
Mr. Boswell? Mr. Granger?
Here.
Ms. Liebel?
Here.
Mr. Phillips?
Here. Our first item of business is to elect our officers for this year. We will start with Chair of the Planning Commission. Can I have any nominations for Chair, please?
I'd like to nominate James Boswell to remain our chair.
I'll second that.
All right. Are there any, I'm sorry, are there any other nominations? Okay.
Ms. Bowe?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Tarley?
Aye.
Mr. Granger?
Aye.
Ms. Liebel?
Aye.
Mr. Phillips?
Aye. All right, normally I would hand the gavel off to the chair, but since he is away from this meeting, we will go ahead and proceed to the election of the first vice chair. May I please have any nominations for first vice chair of the Planning Commission?
I nominate John Tarley to remain our first vice chair.
I'll second that.
All right, any other nominations? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Ms. Bowe?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Tarley?
Aye.
Mr. Granger?
Aye.
Ms. Liebel?
Aye.
Mr. Phillips?
Aye. All right, Mr. Tarley, I'll hand this off to you. I'll bring this up for you. Well done, Mr. Lambert.
All right, after that awkward beginning, we have one more officer, which would be the second vice chair. Do I have any nominations for second vice chair?
I nominate Greg Granger to be our second vice chair.
I second.
Ms. Bowe?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Tarley?
Aye.
Mr. Granger?
Aye.
Ms. Liebel?
Aye.
Mr. Phillips?
Aye. All right, we can get down to our regular agenda. We have no matters of special privilege today. Our next item is the approval of minutes from our regular meeting on November 2024. Are there any changes or modifications to those minutes, or may I have a motion to approve?
I move that they be approved.
I second.
Ms. Bowe?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Tarley?
Aye.
Mr. Granger?
Aye.
Ms. Liebel?
Aye.
Mr. Phillips?
Aye.
That brings us to the open forum. This is your opportunity to speak to the commission on matters of interest. Typically, we suggest that if you want to speak on a matter that has a public hearing scheduled that day, that you wait until that time to take your opportunity to speak. But I want to make sure there aren't any surprises in this particular meeting. The public hearing for PCR 2426, which was the request for a special use permit to allow multi-family dwellings at 1006 Richmond Road, was closed following the presentations and public comment in November 2024. So there won't be any presentation or public comment from the applicant or members of the public when that matter is discussed before the commission. Therefore, if you want to speak to that matter, this open forum will be your opportunity to do so. And as a reminder, there will be another opportunity for public commentary if or when this matter is presented to City Council in the future. So with that lengthy preamble, is there anybody who wishes to speak during this open forum? Please state your name and address for the clerk, please.
Sabrina Fairbanks, 119 Berkeley Lane in Walnut Hills. Good afternoon, Commission. I wanted to say that you're probably not surprised to see me. I feel like I am always here reviewing the same movie. And this movie this time is for another mixed-use development at the Wells Fargo building. I liken it to the movie that you just recently, that we just recently reviewed and you reviewed at Midtown Row. And that is where we're seeing our business space being transformed into residential housing. as a mixed use with, this one with 11 apartments above and business below. I found it interesting that at the Midtown Row Council meeting, Councilwoman Ramsey said that it's turned out that the people who live above these businesses are not frequenting the businesses. So my question is then why should we be building, or why should you be approving more of them? So that's one. Something else that we keep seeing on these movies with the developments is the impact on our infrastructure. This was a big deal with our elections in our recent council elections, because there is a large number of citizens who are all about responsible growth, and we're very worried about the impact on our infrastructure. To start with, traffic. You know, you've got Matoka Court and Mount Vernon. I looked at the traffic study that Mr. Fleurakis obtained, and it looks like he's using estimates for those streets rather than data, and said that there was no VDOT data. Well, VDOT doesn't, I don't think VDOT does obtain data from city roads. So I think you're being asked to make some decisions when you don't, you just have estimates with traffic. And essentially, I think those residents on that side will be virtually be trapped, because at least Midtown Row has a traffic signal. Mount Vernon doesn't, and Monticello, there's no signal, and there won't be a signal, there isn't a signal on Richmond Road and Matoka Court. So you really will be trapping those residents, adding all this extra traffic. With the water, we keep hearing, we don't understand it, but we keep hearing that we have plenty of water, and that residential uses will use less water than businesses. That's hard to imagine, but I wanted to provide you some data so that it's not an estimate, because I've got a 6-unit apartment building in the city, and we still pay for water. So I wanted to let you know how much water, if you had 3 people in each one of these apartments, which is allowed under city code, I went back 3 years, and so on average, if you had 33 residents, that would be 1,745,000 gallons of water per year. And we're really worried that we just don't have that kind of water supply, even for a development this size. Parking, that Midtown Row movie, same thing. Oh, we've got plenty of parking. We don't quite understand the formula where you have 3 people can live in an apartment, but you're only required to have 2 parking spaces or 2 point something. Midtown Row said they had plenty of parking. Their overflow parking is on the street in front of the building, and is now across the street in the shopping center on both ends. So, you know, parking is an issue. And I think that's about all I wanted to say about this movie. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Fairbanks. Ms. Kaiser, you had filled out a speaker's card for PCR 24026. Given that there won't be any public commentary at that time, would you like to speak now?
That avoids any of the blabber that I do if it's not written. So I appreciate this opportunity. Mr. Fleurakis, please understand that this is not a personal issue. I don't know you very well. I like what I know, but this has to do with the property, the place where the proposal is focused, and what I've read about the comprehensive plan from 2021. I just went to the city council meeting, was it only a week ago, where the vibrancy study was reviewed and recommendations were made. So I went back, I read the vibrancy study in its entirety, and I went back through the comprehensive plan and read it in its entirety. And I wanted to quote some things that I thought were really pertinent and shed light on some of the potential negative impacts of this conversion. Chapter 1 of the comprehensive plan, the very first sentence states that it is essential to, quote, protect and enhance Williamsburg's unique character as defined by its residential neighborhoods, unquote. And further, another quote, to improve the quality of life in neighborhoods surrounding William and Mary by building and maintaining effective working relationships between the city, university, students, neighborhoods, and landlords, and to encourage appropriate scale and character for new and infill residential neighborhoods. Ongoing quote, to encourage appropriate mix of housing and commercial uses and mixed-use developments, particularly in the downtown, Midtown Row area. Now, this is not officially Midtown Row, but it is adjacent to it. The Comprehensive Plan 2021, this is less than 4 years ago, is a reminder that the LB2 zone where the building in question stands, quote, allows for a range of uses including single-family and duplex dwellings, banks, bake shops, hotels with 10 or less rooms, and it was very specific, and that phrase was mentioned twice. The zone restricts residential uses to a base density of 8 dwelling units per acre. Another quote from the comprehensive plan, the most important goal of the comprehensive plan is to first protect and enhance Williamsburg's unique character, and it faces a unique challenge to balance the need for healthy growth with the character of our older neighbors, unquote. In Chapter 4 of the comprehensive plan, and I know you probably already know this, you've probably already read it, but I just still think that it's really important to hear this. Chapter 4, which is entitled Community Character, under the heading of Richmond Road, makes the following recommendations. 1, minimizing curb cuts for commercial properties. This property has 2 cuts on the facade facing Richmond Road, as well as a cut into Matoka. And planting additional street trees where possible, and continuing to encourage the elimination or reduction of parking in front of commercial buildings. With the Midtown Row zoning exception, residential density was permitted to increase because of a downward trend in retail vacancy, and the vibrancy study quoted the city's vacancy rate, and this was for 2016-2018, so we're already 7 to 8 years out, at 7 to 8%, and that was before COVID. One of the newest retail residential areas in the city, which is Midtown Row, could not purportedly rent out its retail space. And yet this building conversion at 1006 Richmond Road includes ground level of 2 retail spaces and a request for higher density. In summary, allowing this conversion as requested without even attempting to encourage changes that might protect the immediate neighbors from negative impact is not in line with the written goals of either the vibrancy study or the city's own comprehensive plan. As presented, the folks who live on Matoka Court closest to Richmond Road are at risk from increased vehicle intrusion, light pollution at night, and noise from the outdoor area that's immediately bordering their homes. There also seems to be no encouragement, in fact, no insistence, that this request to increase density and add retail abide by the recommendations of the city's own plan. If the traffic study is valid, then this lot, which is slated to have far less traffic impact than the previous tenants, does not need 2 curb cuts on Richmond Road and a curb cut onto Matoka Court, which is a residential street. If this request were to limit density to 10 or less, as the LB2 restrictions specify, and the patio was moved to the front of the lot to replace parking, then residents and city citizens might feel like the people they voted for to represent them actually mean the words they have written. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kaiser. Is there anyone else who would like to speak at the open forum? I'll close the open forum. We have no consent agenda items. The first 2 public hearings were deferred to our February meeting at the request of the applicant, PCR 24-036 and -037. The next item on public hearings is 5-year capital improvement program from fiscal year 26 to fiscal year 30. We invite citizens to present items for inclusion in the CIP capital improvement program. Are there any citizens who would like to speak to that issue? Sure.
ago, early 80s, there was a proposal to boulevard Richmond Road in the area where it is clearly residential. And I'd like to bring that back up for consideration in light of what the vibrancy study was saying and the comprehensive plan. Part of what the city wants to accomplish is to really emphasize entrance to the downtown area in the city, along with the need for climate change. I think the vibrancy study said that the typical sidewalk temperature is about 85 degrees in the summer, and I think we can all agree that it's probably hotter now. And the addition of trees and a green median would do multiple things for Richmond Road. And yes, I live on Richmond Road. I would love to look out my front door and see a shaded, green, pleasant place for people to walk versus a lot of traffic that's not abiding by the speed limit. And studies show that medians, especially with a lot of green space, just psychologically take the foot off the accelerator. People go more slowly and they're more careful. And that boulevarded area could go down towards, all the way down towards Merchant Square if it could be designed so, and maybe had that been the case, there wouldn't have been a student hit by a moving vehicle last year. So there are multiple reasons why I think boulevarding is great, and I think it is a definition of what Williamsburg has said it wants for its entrance corridors. No idea what it would cost. I'm sure that it would be costly, but I think the benefits would outweigh. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Close public hearing. We have, is there any discussion amongst the commission? Yes, we'll move on. There aren't any site plans and subdivisions for us to review today, so that brings us to unfinished business, which is PCR 24-026. At the last meeting, I recused myself from consideration of this request, and at the recommendation of Mr. Lambert, I will step down from the dais, and Ms. Liebel will chair the discussion of this PCR.
All right, because this is unfinished business from our last meeting, again, the public hearing has been closed, and we've heard additional comments from the public. I want to summarize that this is a request of Mr. Flaurakis for a special use permit, which is different than the allowed uses for this particular district. He would like to add a maximum density of 14 residential units in this building, and also have 2 restaurant spaces on the first floor. We've received all of the reports that are attached to the minutes or to the agenda, and you can click on any of them to read the entire thing. And so at this point, I want to remind everybody there will be another public hearing in front of City Council once we make our recommendation to City Council. So you will have another chance to speak on this issue. Does anyone on the Planning Commission have any more discussion about this particular property? Bill, did you? No?
No, I'm good.
Greg?
No.
No. Bud?
No.
And I have nothing else. So I believe we are ready for a vote on the special use permit that Mr. Flaurakis is requesting to redevelop this currently vacant property. Do I have a motion?
Oh, I move that we approve.
Second.
Ms. Bowe?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Granger?
Abstain.
Ms. Liebel?
Aye.
Mr. Phillips?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
There is no new business. The information items, the city council report, planning department monthly report, the monthly financial statement, and are all included in our packet. I'll dispense with commissioner reports for this particular meeting. As I mentioned earlier, the public hearings for PCR 24-036 and 37 are deferred to February 19th at the request of the applicant. A reminder to the commissioners that we have a work session next Wednesday at 4 p.m. Here to discuss the CIP, Capital Improvement Program. There's no other business before the commission. Meeting adjourned.